What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle Up Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at Notorious KRO. With me to break down the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian Twining?
What's up, Kyle? What a weird weekend for racing, man. We thought we were going to get the conclusion of the race on a Monday. You had drivers out here lobbying for rain tires in the future. And then I didn't even remember that the race was going on Tuesday until you had texted me and told me that one of the guys we talked about wound up winning. So it was just an odd weekend.
Yeah. Obviously your Kyle Busch 3-1 call, a guy that was 15-1 to win the race, took the checkered flag. Nice call by you. I was doing a little reconnaissance of our picks from last week. A mixed bag. I had obviously had Harvick to win. That didn't come through. I had Austin Dillon as a top 10 play. Got 11th, so, being right. Austin Dillon versus Tyler Reddick, that's a cash. And Eric Jones versus William Byron, that did not cash. Those were my head-to-heads. You had Eric Almirola versus Kurt Busch. That was a loss, but you did like Kurt Busch, so it's kind of you're like, I don't know which way to go. And then you're got the one that you called out because I baited you into the Almirola. It was Boyer over DiBenedetto, and that was a win for you. So nice work there. How do you think this impacts this week's race? Obviously, with the restart, this isn't the first time where they've kind of finished a race, had a race midweek and then gotten right back to it on the weekend. Obviously, it wasn't a full race on, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they finished. So that helps, and it's obviously when they were doing their double headers, it was like the summer, so these racers were extremely hot, extremely tired. It takes a lot more out of you. So do you factor the quick turnaround into anything this week? Do you target younger drivers because of that, or does it just not really something you're factoring?
If anything, I would go for more of like the veteran presences that have raced at Martinsville. I mean, this track has been open for a really long time. So most of these guys that have been on the circuit for a while have raced here so many times that they don't need any practice. They don't need to qualify. They know the track like the back of their hands. And that's kind of why we see the odds the way that we do coming into this race.
So before we dive in, if you're enjoying what we're doing, make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe if you are enjoying the content we're creating. We cleared 150 subscribers. We thank you so much for watching our videos, coming back for more, subscribing, leaving comments on who you think is going to be a good race, who you like, any head-to-heads you like. Any of that stuff is really interesting to us. We're always looking for new angles to target. We appreciate the people giving us some feedback as we kind of plan for next NASCAR season, which Brian is I mean, by the time this one wraps up, we're going to be quick turnaround and right back to it. So that will be interesting. Obviously, we got news that Kyle Larson will be back in the saddle again starting next season, racing for Hendrick. It sounds like he's replacing Jimmy Johnson. We'll see how that goes. And we'll see, obviously Eric Jones got a new seat. Bubba Wallace got a new seat. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe we can do a little preview of the season with some of the changes, some of the stuff we're looking forward to. And who knows, maybe by that time they'll be talking about rain tires, so they don't have to have a 4-day delay and end up finishing the race several weeks later. With that being said, it's time to do what we always do. Let's go inside that top 10. Let's talk about our favorite option. And Brian, this is either going to go really well or really badly because we both, in terms of our favorite option at the inside the top 10, it's Brad Keselowski. And usually when we're simpatico on that stuff, either they win or things go horribly, horribly wrong. So, talk to me about your excitement for Keselowski and why you're backing him this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried for Brad because I believe the last time that I picked him, he wound up crashing out of the race. And when you were on him, you actually had him winning a race. So I mean, it's kind of a 50-50
So
proposition here. But
he'll finish the race, but just not anywhere near the front.
yeah,
So
but
target
like,
him in all your head-to-heads this week.
yes, he's he along with the favorite of the race is probably the most consistent driver here. He's got 4 consecutive top 5s at Martinsville. 8 of his last 9 have been finishes inside the top 5. He has 2 victories in those last 7 races here. He's placed 3rd each of the last 2 times at this track. He's had 2 consecutive good finishes in this season with 2 6th place or top 6s. He's going to be starting on the pole somewhere where, these guys at these tracks like Keselowski, who is, if he's really good at this track and he's already starting out in the front, watch out because he could just run away with this. And the fact that he's currently sitting at 4th in the playoff standings with the guy who is the favorite in this race, Martin Truex Jr., currently sitting outside the cut line. So there's going to be a big onus on Brad Keselowski racing Truex to make sure he's staying behind him to prevent Truex from stealing one of those spots. So this is definitely going to be a race where you're going to see the aggressive Brad Keselowski come out, and he's going to be at or near the top of the pack pretty much the entire day.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Truex obviously is the odds-on favorite at plus 325 per DraftKings. We'll obviously dive into Will Hill odds as we kind of run through this, but this is a guy that obviously is coming off back-to-back finishes. As you mentioned, needs to win this week to make it to the Final Four. But if you go through his history, I mean, we'll go back to October of 2016 when he got 7th, and then 16th, 2nd, 4th, 3rd, 8th, 1st. That's a pretty nice run. Obviously, a favorite for a reason. But as you mentioned, Keselowski, just as many wins, 1 more top 5, 1 more top 10, has led more laps, and yet I'm getting almost double the odds.
Yep.
Like, give me Brad Keselowski all day. For me, especially when it comes to betting, the number is so much more important than the driver. And I know that may seem weird, but especially when you're looking at 2 guys that are so close to have so much success. Obviously, Hamlin or Keselowski's not coming off of back-to-back wins, so that's the part of the reason. But like, he still had a ton of success at this track, knows it really well, and it's not like he's had a bad year where he's down and needs to perform well. So I like him a lot this week. I think plus 550 is a nice price, and definitely somewhere that I'd be considering for sure. Let's dive a little deeper and let's go back to the well with last week's winner, Kyle Busch. I didn't really want to go there to be honest, but we were talking pre-show and we were looking at some numbers, and just his recent form. Let me pull up my here. So over the last 6 races, he's obviously got his win. He's got 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. What is he? Been running well as of late. Obviously coming off a win. It's been definitely a very frustrating season for him, but I think if he's in contention this week again, finishes the season strong, he'll have some stuff to feel good about heading into 2020, 2021. And kind of as we progress towards next season, feel okay, I can get back on track. I got whatever kinks were going on figured out. A guy that if you're looking at plus 240 for a top 3 plus money for a top 5, like, I don't hate that if you don't want to go all the way to expecting Busch to get back-to-back wins, but I think he has the goods to win here. I think he's figuring stuff out and getting whatever kinks he was been dealing with. Obviously the season starting and then pausing and the restarting, and it's just some people don't handle it as well as others, and maybe that's been the issue for Kyle Busch. But either way, I think he's definitely somebody that, if you're looking inside the top 10, makes a ton of sense. But let's go outside that top 10, Brian, and let's find some more value. And you can talk to me all about his brother Kurt, who is at 28-1 this week.
Yeah, I mean he's not a guy who I'm looking at as somebody that I'd be betting to win the race, but he is a driver who's been consistently near the top 10 at this track. He's 3 of his last 4 inside the top 10 at Martinsville. Last 5 races here, he's finished inside the top 12. So, if you're looking for a potential top 10 or even like a DFS play, I mean, especially he'll be starting in the 3rd row for this race in the fifth position, as he's currently, I believe, he's 7th in the standings. Let me check that real quick. He's 8th right now, so he's also on the outside looking in. So he's going to be another guy very similar to the favorite and Martin Truex, who needs a victory here to win. And Kurt Busch is a guy who's been running really well. We saw him win a few weeks ago at Las Vegas. He's kind of had an off and on history over the last like 5 or 6 races of this season, with the 2 races where he didn't finish very well were both because of engine trouble and a crash. So it's not like he wasn't running well. And, if you're getting him at 28-1 or inside the top 5 at 3.5-1, like those are great numbers to have. And in a head-to-head matchups like that, we like to kind of look at, is a guy that I'd be looking at for this race.
Yeah, I think you can find some good numbers, especially in some interesting matchups against maybe, I am curious, like, obviously guys like Truex we mentioned or needs to win to get in. So, he's going to be racing harder. That could lead to a crash. That could lead to an issue. So maybe there's a opportunity to target some of those guys too, with some of the guys that are a little bit lower and get some nice prices. The next guy I want to break down is Clint Bowyer at 33-1. Not necessarily like you said with Busch. Like, I'm not necessarily targeting him as an outright, but definitely like his top 5, top 10 type potential. I like his potential in head-to-head matchups. Isn't running amazingly, but has run well at this course. Has won, like won back in 2018. Had a 7th, a 3rd back in 2017, the 7th back in 2019. So he's had some recent success. He knows this track well. He's raced here a ton, and is a guy that, I don't know how many more seasons he's racing, but I think he's going to try and string it out for at least a couple more years. So I don't see him kind of fading into the darkness quite yet, but a decent number, a 7-1 as a top 3, a plus probably 350 for a top 5. I can just look it up instead of guessing. How about that? Plus 400, even better. So I like that call quite a bit. Brian, you got another old fogey heading your way with a similar price. Talk to me about Mr. Jimmy Johnson, who will be retiring come season's end.
Yeah, it's interesting that we both chose these guys, because they are one of the head-to-head matchups that William Hill has listed with Jimmy as the plus money pick here, because over the last few races he hasn't been running very well. You could tell that his car just isn't up to snuff anymore, as that team has kind of went away from him as their primary driver, with him fading away into the sunset. And he got a 10th place finish here this season. This is just kind of a hunch for me. This is his last few races of his career here. I think that this is a guy who wants to show that, he went out near the top of his skill set, and not just kind of like as an afterthought on the circuit. So I'm just kind of looking at Jimmy Johnson as a potential like DFS play. He's starting 27th on Sunday, so I mean he's got some room to move up there. I may even throw a few pennies on him to finish in the top 10 at plus money, just for the fact that he does have some success here over his career, but not recently. But it's just one of those things. Like, it's a hunch play on Jimmy Johnson. It'll be nice to see him go out on on his terms and not because of an injury or anything like that. So
yep, no, I like that call quite a bit. Any head-to-head, you kind of mentioned it, but like, as I look through the head-to-heads over at Will Hill, Brad Keselowski plus 130 versus Martin Truex. I like that.
I like Kurt Busch. He's plus money against Alex Bowman.
Yeah. Bowman's been running really well. I like Kyle Busch versus Ryan Blaney as an interesting spot. As you mentioned, Boyer minus 120 to plus 100 for Jimmy. You could go back to the Almirola versus De Benedetto. I don't know if you want to do
No.
that. little Asti Dilly versus Christopher Bell. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the Bush brothers this weekend, though. I think this is another race where we could potentially see them both finish inside the top 5.
Yeah. I think that's definitely interesting. So as we get ready to get out of here, Brian, Xfinity 500, best bet, hit me.
Man, I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski at plus 550 to secure his spot into the final 4 of this year's playoff standings for the victory.
I like it. I like it a lot. I am going with Kyle Busch, and I am going top 5 finish with Kyle Busch at plus 120. It's not sexy, but you know what? Hitting a top 5 bet at plus money with a guy that I feel really good about. It is, build that bankroll, stack that cheddar, whatever you want to say. I like it. Sometimes we get a little out over our skis. I mean, I had Harvick last week at like plus 200 to win the race. So now I get 5 placement spots with a guy I like just as much, and not that much of a reduction. So I like that. Brian, we will obviously be back next week to assess our Xfinity 500 bets to look forward to the rest of the NASCAR playoffs. And once again, if you're enjoying what we're doing, make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Let us know in the comments where your tickets are this week, who you like, where you're making your bets, and we appreciate you checking us out, and we'll talk to y'all next time.